The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We're raised in the traumatic, toxic environment of indoctrination. And when we're indoctrinated, it becomes very difficult to think without being manipulated. Welcome to another one of our 5 days of reconstruction as we prepare for our next cohort of Reconstruction U, the coaching work I do for people. And, one of the things that's important to realize as you come in and join is that we are in a season of, we're just in cultural trauma right now. Like all of us together as a people have been going through a shared trauma. And it's really a fact. And what we see a lot in people is a trauma response. We are responding as trauma victims to what's happening in the world around us. And so we need to learn together how to have good, healthy trauma responses to be able to kind of get through this together. We're going to talk today about what I have entitled The Amazing Amygdala. We all have this wonderful friend inside of us right back here called the amygdala. And the amygdala is our friend because the amygdala protects us. It is our basic fight, flight instinct mechanism. It tells us we are in danger and we have to protect ourselves. So what happens when there's a sense that we're in danger, the amygdala kicks into action and the amygdala begins to grab resources from the rest of our brain, begins to take the blood from the rest of our brain and starts to say, nothing else matters except us surviving this moment. I say there are three things that human beings are always fighting towards, and that is safety, value, and purpose. We have to know we're going to survive, that we're not going to die. That is our basic human instinct. And once we have a sense we're going to survive, then as humans, we naturally start to think, does anybody care that I'm alive? And so we want value. We want to have value. We want to know somebody's life will be impacted if we aren't here. And then finally, we want to have purpose. Once our safety is intact, we feel valued, then we want to know we have a purpose. There's a reason we were created to live on this earth. And so we're going to fight for those things. And so when we feel threatened, this amazing amygdala starts to gather resources to help us because now it's time. We're under threat. We need to either fight or flight or freeze or fawn. All of those are responses to a sense that trauma is at hand. And if we've suffered a lot of trauma in our life, our response to input can become a PTSD response. And the PTSD says, my safety is threatened here, and so my amygdala has to kick in. It's going to pull resources from the rest of my brain, and I am going to respond in one of the 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And those aren't always the most healthy ways to respond. And so we have to start learning to be friends with our amygdala and say, hey, amygdala, thank you for kicking in to want to help me survive right now. But we need to learn that our safety is actually not at threat here. Our boss is telling us we made a mistake on a report or a project we were working on. That's not a threat to my safety because I understand I can make mistakes and still be okay. When we've been told by a perfectionist mom or an authoritarian religious leader that making mistakes is sinful or not okay, then we begin to think any questioning of whether we did something with a mistake in it becomes a threat to our safety, and thus the amygdala kicks in this PTSD response and says, uh-oh, we're being questioned and our very value and safety is being called into question. I'm going to change my mic. Sorry. And And as we know and we learn as we begin to grow up, no, actually, my safety is not at risk here. So if I've been raised in a religious, ideological environment, the American Christian church, which is the white American Christian church, which is married to its ideology, then when somebody says, I don't agree with your abortion stance, our amygdala kicks in. My safety and value is under attack by you disagreeing with me, because what I know is there's right and wrong, black and white, and any disagreement with that is a threat to my safety and value. Instead of just being able to say, oh, wow, we disagree, let's have an exchange and discourse, all of a sudden there's a threat to my community narrative, and that's an attack on my value and my safety. And we see the response that we have now. And so a person who's living in that type of PTSD, that religious sense that my religion has to be right and yours has to be wrong, or else my value is attacked, then is why we see people respond the way they do, and why they become very easily manipulated by political tactics or by conspiracy theories or the crazy things we have going on today. And so we just need to be able to take out the PTSD response that says, I disagree with your stance, but I can still recognize your humanness and we can still have relationship. Powerful people can learn to lean into vulnerability of admitting mistakes or disagreement. A powerful person can also say, I don't need you to be fixed at this moment. If what I'm doing makes you uncomfortable, that's a you issue, not a me issue. That's something for you to work through. I don't have to fix that for you in the moment. I'm more than willing to have a discussion about it, but if you're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, that I cannot fix for you. And I'm going to allow you to choose to be in that space, and I don't need to fix that. It was a futurist named Alvin Toffler who said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So we see illiteracy in our culture today of people who say, my belief system cannot be threatened. It cannot be questioned. I'm not allowed to question it, and you're not allowed to question it. And so we're raised in the traumatic, toxic environment of indoctrination. And when we're indoctrinated, it becomes very difficult to think without being manipulated. And so the other thing we see in culture today are a lot of us who were raised in the toxic, traumatic environment of indoctrination. We're starting to ask questions. It's called deconstruction. And we're saying, wow, if I'm indoctrinated and I'm starting to question that indoctrination, my safety and value of being a part of this community is under threat, and a foundation starts to leave underneath our feet. We start to feel like we're standing on unsolid ground. And I hear people all the time who are saying, I cannot be a part of that right-wing religious system that I was brought up in anymore, but who am I now? What does reconstructing my belief system look like on the other side of that? Do I have to throw out everything I learned of the Bible? Do I have to hate Jesus? Do I just hate everything I ever learned? Or is there a space where I can say, hey, amygdala, it's okay. I can question my belief systems. I can live in the gray area of I don't know and not have to feel my safety and value under threat. And when we learn to do that, we can then let logic begin to come into our discussions around religion. I can start to say to you, hey, I'm questioning whether the Bible really is as violently angry about abortion as you are, and be able to have a discussion about it, because we're no longer allowing our amygdala to be manipulated by PTSD, but instead we are in control of our emotions and could start to ask logical questions of one another without there being so much emotion. My father was very much a part of that religious system and that toxic religious space. And so instead of getting emotional help, which he would never been allowed to do as a pastor in the Assemblies of God churches, instead he just beat the shit out of his children and abused them brutally. And that's what the Assembly of God preferred, was Yes, keep that in-house. Don't let that get out. Let's not work on emotional health. Let's protect the abuser so we can protect the organization of the church system. And that's what's preferred inside the house of the church. We may argue and say that we don't, but we actually do. It's actually ingrained into the culture. Actually, it's ingrained into American culture, which is heavily influenced by the Protestant Christian culture and Catholic as well. But it's actually still an espoused belief system of the church. And it's particularly played out in our belief of complementarianism beliefs, when we believe that women are second-class citizens, are not as valuable as men. We not only set up women to be mistreated under that system and discounted and not taken seriously, but we also then abuse men by telling them your toxicity is in fact a part of being male, and to try to think I need to express an issue and a problem here becomes a shortfall that can never be revealed. And if we do reveal it, we will immediately lose our job and position in the church. And so it becomes a very, very toxic, destructive, unsafe environment. And so I find it very ironic and very much a they doth protest too much thing, that republicanism and right-wingism in particular, and not even the extreme right wing anymore, very much the center of Republican and right-wing beliefs is this constant uber focus on pedophilia and looking for pedophiles and using the word grooming today and those things. When in fact, the place where I find children to be in most danger in our culture today, maybe not most exactly word, but in grave danger, is in our church cultures. Not just in the building with leaders abusing people, which is in fact happening and is protected on a regular basis, but how our teaching then protects this toxicity in the household, and children get abused on an ongoing basis, and it's covered. And men are told, don't come and express this need and this pain that's causing you trouble, because we will then take you out of any space where you could ever be of influence again. And so men then are told, you must cover up these issues. And the church says it's better to look good and say, well, Jesus handled it for me, I've just forgiven and moved on, than to actually deal with the pain of what's going on inside. The church in the United States has become a very dangerous place for the physical and emotional well-being of those that frequent it on a regular basis. And until we become honest with that and dealing with that, our culture is going to continue the slide that it's in today. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And that's why I moved from pastoring a church, which I found to be a place that I couldn't really have an impact on indoctrinated people who didn't want to be told something different than what they had always known. And it was in fact trauma-inducing by me to ask them to think and try to believe differently than what they already believed, to try to think that maybe their republicanism wasn't from God, but was in fact a manipulation from men. I had to step out of that environment, and I've moved into coaching, which I really love. It's always a good time to make sure we're intentional about learning to deal with life through a healthy, non-PTSD lens. And my journey into a healthier life began with a decision to say transparently, hey, I'm not in my best place right now. I need to look into what's going on inside of me. And I was recently working with my therapist on some issues in my emotional well-being and my emotional health journey. And he told me something really interesting for the particular issues that I'm working on in life. My therapist said, I've worked with 38 cases of people working through the issues you're working through in your life, Paul. And you know how many of those cases are male, are happening in men? The answer is one. He said, Paul, you're the only man who I've ever had to work this issue through. So what does that mean? 38 cases, only one male. So it either means women are more crazy and emotional. Let me take the word crazy out of it. Women are more emotional in an unhealthy manner or more working through unhealthy emotions. And I just happen to be a little less manly than those John Waynes out there who just forgive and forget and move on and are chill. Or men in our culture, particularly the evangelical religious culture, are told you don't get to deal with your emotions and your feelings. You have to be super strong and chill and just get over it and forgive and move on. Just give it over to Jesus. Just take it to the cross. Just read your Bible more and it will be okay. When in fact, men, many of us, particularly in Gen X, are hurting deeply because we were told we weren't allowed to feel. We were told we weren't allowed to be emotional. We were told anything of the flesh was evil and anything of emotionality was effeminate and therefore not for you. And we have a bunch of really unhealthy men who grew up in the toxicity of American culture and of American Christian culture, who are hurting very deeply and have been for a long, long time. And that's why I do emotional and spiritual well-being coaching and mentorship through Reconstruction U, because particularly for men, but also for women, I have clients of all kinds of people on the spectrum of gender. But I particularly feel an urgency in me to say to men, that toxicity that you were raised with, don't throw like a girl, don't cry like a girl, don't feel your emotions. Flesh is evil. You're an original sinner. You're a reprobate mind. You are a depraved human being because flesh is evil, is toxic theology and toxic cultural belief systems and mindsets that have destroyed us inside. And the people who propagate that belief system need to be told, no, you don't do it anymore. And so if any of this resonates with you, like when you get in a situation where somebody's challenging you with a mistake, that you start to feel, oh no, they're going to find out I'm not good, and look out, it's going to be terrible. I need to throw up a big defense system. Or, oh no, I can't have this conversation with a person who believes differently than me. Or, oh no, I'm not allowed to reconstruct my beliefs or deconstruct my beliefs. I want to help you. I want to work with you. So here's what I'm offering today as I'm doing my special 5 days of Reconstruction U, a free one-on-one consultation with me. We can hang out together on Zoom and chat about it. And if you go to my website, pastor-paul.com, I want to meet with you one-on-one and just kind of see where you are and see what I do that can help. And it may be that my coaching services will be powerful for you in this season. I believe they will be, and we can discuss that. I'm also offering a huge discount on my coaching services right now, 40% off, because I know it's been a difficult time for many of you out there. And so we're offering a huge discount right now because I want to make my coaching services available to you. So if you've been going through deconstruction and are struggling to find your footing, let me offer some Reconstruction U coaching to you through my online curriculum, cohort learning, and one-on-one coaching and mentorship. I can help, and I've helped a lot of other people. So if you go to pastor-paul.com, don't forget that dash, pastor-paul.com. I would love to hang out with you and have a discussion and see if my services can help. And in our 5 days of reconstruction, maybe it's time to say, hey, I'm feeling a little unsettled emotionally inside. I'm feeling like the earth is shifting under my feet as I'm deconstructing my beliefs, and I could use some coaching help to walk that through. Let's talk. Pastor-paul.com. That's the website, and go check it out.